What is up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Granny's Peach Tea, episode 157 for those who are counting. On this glorious Sunday evening, you've guessed it, we're going to be talking about more X-Men this week. Lots of X-Men. And
X going to give it to you.
Yeah. Whether you want it or not, it doesn't matter. It's still going to happen. Yeah, thanks for joining us as always. If you're joining us on the Facebook live stream, if you're joining us on YouTube or X, Twitter, Instagram, or if you found your audio-only podcast, we always appreciate the support. Lots of cool stuff to talk about this evening. We're going to be talking about that crazy season 4 trailer for The Boys that dropped late last night out of nowhere. So we're going to get Jason's honest reaction to that because, as he has said in the past, he has not seen it, so we're going to just get that here. There's some interesting things, some interesting tidbits to talk about there. We got episode 8 of X-Men 97. That is just wow. And X2 X-Men United. Yeah, X2 X-Men United, one of universally considered one of the best Fox-era X-Men films by many of us. We'll be giving our honest look back on it now because it's been a while. It was a while since I actually sat down and watched this in its entirety. So excited to talk about that as we count down our way to Deadpool and Wolverine in late July. But it's a long countdown, so we got to get started early. But I am Ed, and with me as always is Jason. Jason, what's up, man? How's your week been, dude?
Been all right. Just hanging around at home. Went back to work, playing video games, watching. I think I said I was watching the Boondocks last week. Continued on with that. Ed, I've got some news that's going to make you sad.
Okay.
Boomerang is not streaming anywhere.
Wow. Is it one of those weird streaming things that bounces around? Because I thought like Eddie Murphy did a bunch of Paramount movies, so I would assume it would have been like Paramount Plus.
Oh, you know what? I think I forgot to check Paramount Plus. So I'm going to check that and get back to you guys because I was in the mood to watch it the other day. We were talking about it.
Oh, okay.
I've been listening to John Witherspoon in as the granddad, and I was like, you know what? I want to rewatch this movie. It's been a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find it, but I'm going to look on Paramount. If I can, I will watch it by next week. And this time that I use while you share the show out, I will talk about Boomerang.
Wow. Okay, that's not it. It is not a review that I thought we were going to be getting at any point during the show. But hey, whatever. Listen, we come out with some random shit sometimes. I mean, I'm going to talk about Independence Day in July. So, I mean, hey, you never know.
It's a great time. Great time will be had by all.
Absolutely. All right. So, I guess let's get into it then. Let's go ahead and let me pull up the trailer for season 4 of The Boys that dropped last week, a show that is beloved certainly by Jason and I. And yes, we're waiting, some might even say scraping at the door for this season 4 to come. So
I think Nick Cage would say that.
Oh, absolutely he would. I said it last night when one of our dogs was kind of scratching at the door a little because they wanted to get in somewhere. And of course I start yelling out in the house and Angie actually gets the reference now. I'm like, scraping at the door. She just starts laughing every time. All right, let's go ahead and let's check out this trailer together. Season 4 of The Boys.
I look back at my life and all I see are the messes I made. And I ain't got time to fix it. I can do one thing right with the time I got left. I can't do it alone. I can't do it without you. If I thought things had changed.
This country is corrupt beyond repair. So we gotta save it.
Friend, you better think
It's not going to be easy. We'll have to do some terrible things for the greater good. You'll no longer be beloved celebrities.
In the fewest of ways.
You will be wrathful gods. Show me a little wrath.
That doesn't sound good, Ashley.
Oh, you know shit, Ashley.
Sorry, Ashley.
The whole world is about to burn. We need someone like you, Billy, before the soups start rounding us up and dumping us off in camps.
I have found the answer to all our prayers. A virus that kills soups.
This is insane and desperate, even for you.
Well, insanely desperate's where we are, don't you think, love?
Let's go. Chop, chop, motherfuckers.
This is a biblical war of good versus evil. I'm declaring hunting season on Star Ladders.
I can't believe this is fucking happening to me again.
Look, we've all done bad shit. What's insane is that our solution to every problem is murder. Violence isn't brave.
Violence is power.
That's the spirit, champ.
Who wants a creamy, delicious milkshake?
If we're ever gonna win against monsters, we need to start acting human.
You're all fucking welcome.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah, that is a hell of a trailer.
That is a hell of a trailer. There's a lot going on there, and it's definitely worked. It's got me more excited for this season.
Yeah, I would say. Man, so I think the things that stand out, and in our group text, with me, you, and Rick, he did bring up something here that I thought was interesting too. So I guess the things that stand out to me about this, the biggest thing that stands out to me is what we thought of in the post-credit scene for Gen V in the finale. That obviously Butcher has that virus that kills soups, and
Yes.
it looks like they're going to do a nice job
Yes,
following
he
it up.
does.
And we've both speculated, what the hell would Butcher do in this scenario? That this would fall into his lap, and boy, he's obviously going to use that in his war against the soups, man.
Yeah, but it also looks like that things have been escalated. Like, this guy's saying like, the soups are gonna be shipping us off to camps, and you got the rise of Homelander and politics, and there's less restrictions. So I think it's like an escalation on both ends. It's like,
sure.
Butcher would probably use this anyway, but now he kind of has to.
Yeah, exactly. Like even when that little scene where he's talking to Starlight, and they're in their hideout over there, and he's even saying like this is where we're at right now. Desperate is where we're at, like, because it looks like also Homelander has taken the Seven and pretty much talks about them being like extremely hostile and super aggressive, like out in the open now.
Yes,
not just like behind closed doors and showing faces, being Vought celebrities in front of the world, which is insanely dangerous, obviously, because we've seen what they're capable of.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's very and I love that they're teasing another redemption story for I forget the guy who runs fast, the Flash.
Oh, A-Train.
A-Train. Like, because every season it's won't he be redeemed, and then he's a shitbag and he decides not to be. They threw that in the trailer.
Yeah, that's true. And just it just looks like another wild bloodbath, crazy season. But it's always important to remember that behind all of that, there usually is a lot of smart shit and great writing. That is why there's reasons why this happens. It's not just for show, and that's it.
Yeah,
which is why I love the show.
None of it is gratuitous. It's extreme, but not gratuitous. And I think that's important because it's allegory. Like it's symbolism. They're making social commentary. I mean, that's why it's funny that a lot of Trumpers really love the show and love Homelander and don't realize that they're being made fun of here. Like, you know, they're setting up Homelander as this Trumpian figure. And that's all social commentary. And that's, you know, agree with it or not as politics. It's very well written and very well executed.
Yeah, and for it to not be like, I mean, I agree with you on that 100%. But like for some to like maybe not catch on to that, maybe not to make it so obvious, it talks about how well the writing is there too, right? Like even you would draw in those who,
for sure,
you know, might feel differently about these things. Like, yeah, I agree with you. Like you can clearly see what it's, you know, what's there and what they're commenting on, but like through the world of the boys. So, yeah, I really can't wait for that show to come back, man. That is definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, no, and it's one of the few things that I feel is elevated past the source material. Like I've never read The Boys, but I know Walter's read a lot of it, and he's the first to say that the show is much better than the books. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that too, and I also didn't read The Boys either, but looks like I'm good to go then. I mean, even though I've heard a lot of stuff like, you know, that the violence in the comic book is even much more, it's much worse than what we see on the show. But the writing itself, like the storytelling on the show is better. Yeah. Which is what I'll take as the trade-off, you know, for sure. All right. So I mean we were hyped up anyway. We both don't need to be sold on The Boys, but that trailer definitely got me hyped up when I saw it drop last night.
Yeah, agreed. I'm watching it just now. I'm like, oh my god, this is. I can't wait to get back into this world. And I think my only ding on it is that we didn't get to hear Butcher say "cunt." That's my only ding.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure he will. In probably the first 10 minutes of the first episode.
6 times in the first 10 minutes. I mean, that's how he rolls.
All right. So excited for that. Excited also. Let's talk about our show that we've been rolling with for a little while. X-Men 97, episode 8. So they are gearing down the final 3-part finale, season finale that we're getting here. This was part 1 this week. It was Tolerance is Extinction, part 1. And yeah, you can pretty much see that this is definitely Bastion's whole thing, you know, regarding it. And a lot of the stuff that we speculated on last week essentially came to be true about Bastion, right? Like, you know, we learned a lot of that pretty early on in episode 8. And one of the things that I think one of the through lines in this episode, I think that I really enjoyed a lot was the whole Summers thing, like between Scott and Cable and Jean Grey. Like there's a lot of focus on their relationship, and especially Scott and him wanting to learn to be, you know, the father that exactly what he even says it early on that Charles was, and he feels like Cable's avoiding him, and there's this like tension that they're having there, and Jean is trying to like maybe, you know, patch things up there, even though she's in an awkward spot because, I mean, her clone Madeline Pryor is Cable's mother, and he knows it as well.
Yeah, like she's not the mother at all, and everyone knows it. And that was part of a problem that her and Scott were having, right? Because he still had this connection with Madeline Pryor, and she was jealous because, and Scott points this out in one, not this episode, but another episode, like, that's the mother of my child. What do you want me to do? And so I thought that was it, that added to the tension of like this Summers family reunion, but not really. And I thought it was really well done, especially for a cartoon. I mean, geez.
Yeah, exactly. I fully agree. And that's the thing. Like, I'm going to tell you the truth. There are moments watching X-Men 97 that I actually forget I'm watching a cartoon. I'm going to tell you the truth. Like, just the dialogue, the material, the things we're dealing with, it doesn't even feel like it. Even though, I mean, we watch animated stuff like Invincible is obviously for adults and stuff. But man,
yeah, but that feels like a cartoon.
Yeah, X-Men 97.
Not in a bad way.
It really doesn't. Yeah, exactly. We're not digging cartoons. I mean,
we watch
plenty of animated stuff, but yeah, X-Men 97 is just. I'll even say this before we even like start getting into more of the details here. I'm pretty sure I've made up my mind already on this. Especially watching 2 of the Fox X-Men movies. X-Men 97 is the ultimate adaptation of the source material to date.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. I mean, but it's the same thing with Batman the Animated Series. I mean, that's still the ultimate adaptation of this material too. I think if you have good writers and a good vision and people who know and care about the material, then I think cartoons or animated series like this is the best format to try to, do runs of comic books.
Yeah, and I will say that I'm going to call it right now. I think unless we find out something really, really crazy that the creator of this show did, I think he's going to get hired back at some point by Kevin Feige. I'm going to just say that right now. I think that's what's going to happen.
I agree.
Because this has been
unless
too much
it's
of a
something
hit.
super cancelable.
Yeah, exactly. Unless we find out something really horrific that he did. And it's still been mum to this point. I mean, there's been rumors of stuff, but still nothing has come out about that. I think it might be handled like a James Gunn situation where maybe they look into it and they find out, okay, I think this is something we can get past, and they'll bring him back on board, is my guess. But I don't know. Who knows? I could be wrong because maybe there's something really bad he did. So, all right. So then also Bastion he goes ahead and creates the Prime Sentinels, and his view of this is he's upgrading humans to pretty much for their own survival is what his vision is of this, right? We always say the best villains are those who believe in their cause, and in some weird ways you could almost see their point in a way, but then they of course cross a line to make themselves the villain, because he says in a future that mutants outnumber humans. What do you say, 100 to 1 or something like that at some point, and then humans become extinct over time. And his whole thing is he needs to upgrade the humans to make as his Prime Sentinels as pretty much cyborgs to kind of evolve them past mutants. So it's like a race of evolution in his mind, the way he's pointing this out.
An evolutionary arms race, right?
Exactly.
The mutants have become superior to us. Now we have to not just become superior to them, but we also have to be superior killing machines towards them, because that's the whole plot, right? Every time when they're activated, if they go near a mutant, they just murder them.
Yeah, and that's where obviously he loses everyone else. Is when he's like, "Wait, genocide? Okay, you're done. You are the villain." That's
right. Now, nothing good ever ends or starts with or involves genocide ever.
No, just a thing. Because even those are Thanos is right. They're mass genocide, half of existence, not the best idea.
Yeah, it's called genocide, people.
All right. Then we also find out there's a conversation that goes on between Cable and the X-Men, and pretty much the question is asked by Logan, which is a great point. If you can time travel, why the hell didn't you go and stop Genosha from happening? And it's interesting that Beast is the one who kind of reveals, and he mentions Kamar-Taj, by the way, which I thought was very interesting as well.
Yes, he does.
Little Doctor Strange Easter egg here.
And makes a lot of sense when we get to the end of this episode, and we'll save it to the end. But this is the first of many.
Yes. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's first of many references or Easter eggs or anything.
Mm-hmm. So we basically find out that Genosha is a fixed point in time, right? And basically Cable kept trying to go back, and he kept on getting basically kicked right back out. So Genosha has to happen. But and we did see this in that episode, which I thought was really cool, is that in Madeline Pryor's final moments, she does see Cable briefly, and she kind of went out at ease and happy, which I thought was very fascinating. Yeah. That was one of the things that was brought up in here.
I did too, and I thought it's really nice. It was a nice moment that they gave them, because it is so important that is his mother, And and of course we have questions too, right? How come he couldn't go save him? It's like, no, he was there to save his mother that night and was yanked back. And it wasn't just the mutants; he was there for his mother. So damn well he wanted to do it. And I just thought that was really nicely put together.
And it also perfectly explains his motivation. Besides saving his time, he wants revenge for his mother. Because Bastion killed his mother at this point, and that's where he's basically out for revenge, which I thought was pretty cool plot point too. So then we find out that the Earth, we'll just say the Earth media, because they sounds like all of them have the information now that Charles, all his whole thing that was on, and it was leaked by Bastion to the Earth media that, hey, listen, Charles is alive and well, and guess what? The X-Men lied. They faked their leader's death to garner support and sympathy from the world, which I thought was interesting because we do find out too that in the future, Bastion gets sympathy, and stuff based on Genosha and things of that nature, and starts turning the public against the X-Men and against the mutants. So this was kind of like the first domino to fall in that timeline. And another thing that I thought was pretty cool in this thing was there's a conversation that happens with Kurt and Jean, and it's about family. And Jean's talking about her memories are botched up and everything like that. Like she feels like she could have been Cable's mother and stuff like that, and felt the kicks inside. Talks about says she has the memories, and Kurt references how Mystique, his mother ditched him and left him behind, and he still met up with Rogue, and they chose to be family. It wasn't because they were forced to, or they didn't have like this headbutting thing going on, that they chose this. And you can basically say, Gene, you can kind of choose to be family too, being that Madeline appears to be died in Genosha. So, you guys can patch things up as well. So I thought that was a pretty nice
and it definitely feeds into what the X-Men is about, right? Found family. When your family doesn't accept you, you go and create your own. I mean, that's what the X-Men is. So I thought that was a nice touch, like, not forgetting the base of what this group is about.
Yeah, I agree. And then we find Sinister is kind of like using Bastion to kind of like this whole mutant tinkering with mutants and stuff like that, or tinkering stuff was kind of his whole thing. And he's talking to was that woman, I forget, was that woman the senator or something like that? I know she's been like an X-Men ally or perceived X-Men ally up until now. She kind of filled in for like Senator Kelly in a way.
That was her, right?
No, that's
her. That's why
sure.
She kind of turns on the end. Yeah, that was. And that's why she turns on the end, right? Because she has that crisis of conscience because she was really their ally. She's just being kind of misled.
Yeah, there's also that, and I think it really rings a bell because in this moment we find Magneto chained up in his underwear on an X that was there, and that kind of set a bunch of people on the internet a bit wild. They're not something we thought we were getting at any point, but it is also revealed that he's been mute. But here we are, Magneto in his drawers, or swimming suit, or whatever.
That's right.
It looked like Speedo of some sort. I'm not really sure. So he's there, but as they also see that he has the numbers on his forearm from the Holocaust from
what
when
a
he was
moment.
a child. She sees that, and I think that's what triggers her to start thinking, what am I doing? Like, this is all wrong. Like, this is basically what's happening all over again.
Yeah, that's the best moment of the episode, I think, where because it's so subtle, and then you kind of see the gears turning, and yeah, I mean that's what this is, right? That's what Bastion is doing. He's attempting a mutant genocide. But wait a minute, wait, the X-Men are so woke, Ed. You mean to tell me that mutants are just an allegory for the other that are persecuted? Oh my God, so fucking woke.
Mind blowing. There's no way
it's gonna
that
happen
my beloved
once an episode.
My beloved X-Men. I thought it was just shiny claws and people punching people. Damn it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And you also see Magneto's fuming because he's got one of these collars on, right, to his power dampening collars. And she even like asks him for any kind of reaction. He just opens up his eyes quick and gives her a look. And you know the moment he fucking gets out, it's gonna be on. Like he's had it. He has played the good guy enough. You know what I mean? Like this is where he turns into like Magneto that where we've seen more in action, not leader of the X-Men Magneto. He's like, fuck this. I've done with you guys, and this is it. We'll get back to Magneto in a little bit. But the Summers crew, they go to Bastion's childhood home looking for answers and stuff, and they think it's like a Sentinel base based on some intel they had. And they find out it is Bastion's home. They meet his mother's there, and we get this whole backstory that Jean gets on Bastion by touching one of his like belongings as a child. And there's also like a drawing that he had as a kid. And it's basically fucking a bunch of Sentinels coming together. But we also find out Bastion is a descendant of all Sentinels, namely Nimrod, when he went back in the past and infected his father, and his father, you know, went ahead and obviously became his father, impregnated his mother, and that's how this line of Prime Sentinels were essentially born. That was referenced last episode. And that's really interesting. That's what it is. And that's a callback to, I believe it was in season 4 of the animated series when Nimrod, the whole One Man's Worth storyline that we got back then. So I thought that was a pretty awesome tie-in that's there. And and then Nimrod, and we also find out why Nimrod is in one of the in a master mold in one of these in all the openings recently, because he has a lot to do with what the hell's going on here.
And I guess like that's the villain I guess they were alluding to, right? I was like you as well. Like I guess that's the villain they were alluding to. It was Nimrod. And I thought, is this now? I'm going to ask you, is this a comic book thing, Bastion and Child of Sentinels and stuff?
He was essentially born of this. Yeah, I think we referenced it last week when we were talking about. It is somewhat similar to his comic origin, so it's not really that far off.
I wasn't sure if it was still
X-Men 97.
I just wasn't sure if it was still if like what we found out this episode still jives with like his comic origin.
Yeah, it's close enough where it's right there. It's essentially, again, they just kind of adapted little tweaks here and there to fit into the X-Men 97 storyline. So then Bastion is there. We find that he's given his whole speech that's going on. And we also find that he's working with some interesting fellows here across the globe. And one of them is Baron Zemo.
Yes.
And another one is Dr. Doom.
Oh, yes. You know I was happy as shit.
Jason, what was your reaction when you saw Dr. Doom completely out of fucking left field?
I paused it. I was like, am I fucking seeing this? Really? I just get a Dr. Doom drop? I mean, and look, it's the first and definitely not the last of these drops. But for me, they set the bar too high, man. You weren't getting any higher than Doom.
Oh, maybe they did. We'll find out.
Let's see.
We shall see. Something tells me I think they've got something that could rival this. But the line that Doom says, though, he even says, don't mistake my compliance for like signing on with this like mass genocide thing that you're trying to do. Which makes me wonder if we're going to see him again at some point once he sees like the plan that's playing out. Oh man,
I think we will. I think this is setting up an introduction to more Marvel characters. I do. I mean, like to be brought in because that's the X-Men are. The X-Men's tussled with everyone. The X-Men's you know join forces with everyone. There is a very famous run that concerned the Avengers and the X-Men that you were discussing in the text with Rick. Like, you know, I really think that this is where it's going. Like, X-Men 97 worked, and the next step is to open up the other universes. And I would love to see the 90 Spider-Man being given the treatment this is, because they left that on a fucking cliffhanger.
And I think we might have our answer in a little bit later on in this chat here, because that was a pretty big thing. So the Prime Sentinels get activated then right after this, and in every part of what we've been following in the episode, and it's fucking wild. This thing goes, the roller coaster has gone up, and now we're getting the fucking drops out of nowhere for the rest on. Anyone who's near mutants, so one of them is, and they're being activated, Beast sees in Cerebro, and he's explaining to the reporter that he's talking to, his reporter friend in the mansion, like, yes, I've programmed Cerebro to track down all these Prime Sentinels, and you see dots everywhere, all over the fucking globe, and you're everywhere. Like, holy shit! She gets activated. We find out she's one. She starts raining havoc in the fucking X Mansion, and then Wolverine comes in. He's like, I got to talk to Hank about his taste in women, and an all battle breaks out. A bunch of them show up. Like, fucking Logan is in the air, falling out of the sky, slicing a bunch of them up, which was super badass.
That's great.
And Nightcrawler pulls out 3 fucking swords, and they're fighting back to back.
I fucking love that Nightcrawler brandishing a sword in his tail. Oh my god! Because I remember I'm a huge Nightcrawler fan, and so when I saw him like three blading it, I was like, oh my god, that's so exciting.
Yeah, because Logan says something like, I've got 6 reasons to to go ahead and to have an issue with it. And he's like, no, make it 9. And he has 3 fucking swords. You're like, oh, shit. And dude, Morph turns into Juggernaut to fucking fight these things off.
That was insane. When I saw that, I was like, wait, did the Juggernaut come and help? Oh, no, that's Morph. That's insanity.
Which, by the way, answers my question from last week. Where the fuck did Quicksilver come from? That was Morph as Quicksilver. It wasn't actually Quicksilver. So, duh.
Yeah, right. So there we go. You can never trust anyone when a shapeshifter's around.
This is true. But yeah, probably Wolverine's most badass moment in this entire X-Men 97 so far. And boy, was it well worth it.
Oh, yeah. Watching him and Nightcrawler go to town on these things was such a this episode is chock full of such good things, and that moment was probably my favorite fight in the entire season so far.
Yeah, if it isn't, it's right up there for me, because this episode is one of my favorite episodes of the season, and I feel like I've been saying that every week lately, which is a damn good thing. And Jubilee and Sunspot are there, and they were doing some like retail therapy shopping, and then the Sunspot's butler gets activated to be one of these Prime Sentinels. Yeah. And ironically, they're in a mall, and Jubilee has this great line where she's like, "That's it, I'm done with malls," referencing the first episode of X-Men, the animated series.
Yep.
And
that is awesome.
Along that battle, she's like also complaining about how everyone else can fly except her, but she learns that Sunspot can fly, and that he's been training in the Danger Room to do so, which I thought was pretty badass.
That was badass. We actually get to see him do some stuff this week, which is cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like, instead of kind of just like be there, which has been most of it. But yeah, he definitely gets his moments to shine here. And then catching up with the Summers, they've got Bastion's entire hometown has been activated, and they're all after the 3 of them. And they end up destroying a fucking Blackbird, which we find out that apparently 3 in 3 months Scott and the team has destroyed, and that Hank's going to be pretty pissed about this whole thing, which I thought was funny.
That's a very James Bond like thing, like right? Q's going to be pissed.
Interesting thing too, though, especially the timing up for us. Scott has a Porsche that he drives Cable and Jean in while they're trying to do their whole battle, and it's actually the same. It's an X2 reference, because it's the same car he has in X2.
Is it really? I didn't
even
catch that.
No, it's just so subtle, but I was like, wow, this time out perfectly for me and you, man.
That's awesome.
And while they're battling, Scott also has this great line that he says to Jean and Cable, like, let's show them why you don't mess with the Summers. And then they fucking go to town using their powers and stuff. And I thought that was a pretty awesome bonding moment for the 3 of them, tying back into what we were alluding to earlier.
Yeah, that was awesome. Where Jean's got them in the protective orb, and Cable's and Daddy and son are shooting, one with a gun, one with his eyes.
So sick, so sick. And then we find out Magneto has been set free by the senator that's there, and he's basically like, he's done with this shit, and he's flying into fucking basically the top of the earth and stuff, and his fucking Speedo still, and he says one fucking word, enough, and creates this entire magnetic fucking field around it and takes out all the Prime Sentinels in one swoop.
Yeah.
How badass of a moment is that?
Is
that for this character?
So fucking badass. And now we know why it was very important they got Magneto in chains before they did this, because they knew that he could do this. He lit this bang and they fall, but then like the lights go out, right? Like he's like, bad shit is coming, and Magneto's going to be the herald of it. And I think it's very interesting that I've been seeing on X, Twitter, hashtag Magneto was right has been trending.
Yeah, because she also says that at one point. As this is happening, she gives this speech where she even says that Magneto was right, that he understands us more than Charles ever did. And that was like, wow. Really? This is where we're at right now.
But I mean, it's true though, right? Like, because that's the thing. Magneto knows that when pitted against each other, the scared species, the less dominant species, will try to kill the other off for their own survival or for protection or whatever. It's like that he experienced genocide, experienced evil at the hands of human beings. He knows what they're capable of. Like, I love Charles Xavier, but he's Professor X. He's intellectual. He's read some stuff, but didn't he grow up in like a doesn't he own the X Mansion? Like, didn't he grow up like a little rich boy?
Essentially.
So I think it's interesting.
And while this is going on, though, we do get what is arguably the cameo of the episode. We get the Spider-Man from the confirmed. It is Spider-Man that we see, and
is it confirmed?
That is Spider-Man from the animated series, from the 90s animated series.
Chef's kiss. Bring back. I want to know what happened to Mary Jane. They never found her.
Spider-Man 98?
I stay up. Let's do it. I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night sweating, going, he never found Mary Jane. She was a robot. Where's the real Mary Jane? Because they never answered it, but now's the opportunity.
And if that happens, it's going to take me and you down a nice little path of rewatching that entire series again. So you should be ready for that if that's the way.
I would gladly. I would gladly rewatch that. Actually, even if they don't do it, I wouldn't mind rewatching that for this. That's a great show.
It absolutely is. I obviously adore it. But so I will say, maybe I'm being partial. Maybe the things behind me might tell you a little bit otherwise. But I will say Spider-Man gets the slight edge over the Doctor. Even though the Doctor Doom was completely not expected, I was waiting for Spider-Man at some point in X-Men 97. So that's where I think it's a little different. I was not expecting Doctor Doom at any point.
All right. I'll tell you for me what edges Spider-Man just a hair, is that it's the official cartoon from the 90s Spider-Man.
Okay, fine, fair enough. And I figured that might put that one over the top, though. But if you went with Doom, I can understand. I wouldn't argue with you on that one.
I mean, look, it would have been Doom otherwise. He's fantastic. I have a mask of him in my apartment. I mean, no joke. I'm a fan.
You say Doom is fantastic?
Doom is fantastic. Okie dokie.
Okie dokie. All right. But we also get another cool line here, which pretty much wraps up the episode. Just when you thought it couldn't get any more jaw-dropping, Logan's like, that Magneto did it. And they're like, what? Like, saved our tail? Like, no, he declared war. And it is true. And he's like, man, like, we could really use Charles right about now. And of course, Charles comes fucking. A spaceship comes crashing in from the Shi'ar,
Second.
and we find out it like that moment, and it's Charles, and he immediately calls out to me, my X-Men, and we see all the X-Men getting his message. So shit's really going down right now in these last 2 episodes, man.
Yeah. We're gonna have a Charles versus Magneto standoff, and I don't know. I don't think all the X-Men are gonna back Charles.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I think
like
that's what we're getting here. I think that's what we're getting here.
Yeah. And also, we only got 2 more episodes before Gambit, I think, is officially, or no, 1. We got 1 more episode left, or 2.
2 more episodes.
2 more. I think if they don't bring Gambit back in these 2 episodes, he might really be gone.
You might actually be convinced, even though we've had a funeral and everything, that there might be a chance that it's a wrap for him.
Look, there's always a chance. But again, he's not Uncle Ben. He's not Batman's parents. But it would be a ballsy move if they really just put the Cage in arrest like that.
It would be a super ballsy move. But my prediction is I think we get him back next season. I actually think they're going to let it go for a little bit. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I mean, pretty awesome episode once again from X-Men 97. They just keep on putting out banger after banger every week. It's just, wow. I'm just so damn happy that we have this show, man. It is really, really spectacular.
Yeah.
Some might even say it's uncanny.
It's been a really uncanny. Oh. Some might say it's the evolutionary next level to these shows.
All right. Well, let's get to our movie of the week here. As we continue our countdown to Deadpool and Wolverine, we were revisiting the Fox X-Men era, and that brings us to X2 X-Men United. Definitely, I'm curious to see how I feel at the end of this. Definitely enjoyed this. This has always been one of my favorite X-Men movies. Since I started in the theater, it is definitely, for me, a step up, and always has been a step up from the original, as much as I'm not knocking the original. But this is one of those sequels that is, like we talked about actually at the bachelor party, that this is one of those sequels that is better than the original.
It is, for sure.
I think it's better written, better characters, better pace. On every level, I think it is better than the original.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm going to say this. I think it ties with Spider-Man 2 for what I believe is the best pre-MCU Marvel comic book movie. Like, I think this and Spider-Man 2 are the apex. Like, I watched this and I was like, this is actually somehow better than I remember it.
Yeah, this still really friggin' holds up, man. I mean, there are some creative choices that I don't love because I, again, trying to like not think forward because obviously I know where this whole thing goes. But overall, though, this one is it is super badass. This is right there with like, you're right, Spider-Man 2, Blade, like the original Blade. I mean, it might be a pretty short list of pre MCU. Yeah. I'm trying to think of pre 2008 Marvel movies. Yeah, this is definitely one of those for sure.
And I think for me it held up. It was I actually felt glee watching certain aspects of this movie. And again, a lot of it was Magneto. A lot of it was Magneto, but
I'll tell you though, right off the bat though, one of the best scenes in the whole Fox X-Men franchise is the Nightcrawler attempted assassination on the president. That is so fucking awesome.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. Just seeing the use of his power like that, where like how he uses it to fight and escape and pounce. And it's like, wow, like why didn't we get Nightcrawler 4. You know, that's what I was thinking. But like such a great introduction.
Yeah, like right off the bat, and it sucks too that we don't get Nightcrawler again until like the rebooted era, because this is the only time we get Alan Cummings Nightcrawler, which is fucking sad. Because I'm pretty sure he wasn't in X3 due to like scheduling, which is just a lot.
Okay,
about that movie.
That's
stupid.
That sucks because he is fantastic as Nightcrawler.
Yeah, he really is. He is a scene stealer in almost every one that he's in. In my opinion, like he really is the one of the he is the standout of this film, and there's a lot of good, performances. Obviously, Ian McKellen's always great. Patrick Stewart's always great. Hugh Jackman's always great in these movies. But man, Alan Cumming really does stand out in this thing. And we also get a lot of like the follow up on Logan was sent to Alkaline Lake at the end of X-Men, and it picks up right where it left off, like perfectly, where he's out and about looking in Canada, and that ties in. It also leads us to Stryker, and we get his whole backstory, and there's a lot of like Logan tie in here, which, by the way, Brian Cox is awesome. I love Brian Cox in anything he's in, and he is great as Stryker.
He just passed like yesterday, right? Did I read that he just passed like yesterday or 2 days ago? Brian Cox.
Did he really? I didn't think so.
Let me see. I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, I was actually doing the same right here. I'm pretty sure. No, he's still alive, man.
Oh, okay. I thought I read that today. My bad. I'm glad. I'm glad he's still here. He's fucking fantastic.
Stop trying to kill Brian Cox, man.
I'm not. No, I stopped a long time ago after he put that restraining order out on me.
No, he's awesome as Stryker in this. Also, he's another one. There's also Kurt is found by Storm and Jean in a church in Boston, and I think that's also a pretty cool scene too, where he's hopping around, and we get a lot of his and a lot of explanation of a lot of his background here, like the angelic symbols that he has carved on himself and everything, and an explanation of his powers. And we've talked about it in the X-Men the animated series, how important his faith is to this character. So I think that's a cool little backstory we get there. And then
I also love every time that he introduces himself, like, because he says it, but then he tries a couple more times and he's cut off. It's like, my name is Kurt Wagner, but in the circus, I was known as the Amazing Nightcrawler or something like that. I just love that he says it every time. He tries to say it every time.
and Logan's the best though. He's just like, he's listening for a second. He's like, all right, save it, get out of here. Like, I don't even want to hear your shit, man. And you can tell he's like so upset about it. He couldn't finish it. But I think one of the big things we get in this movie is when the invasion on the X Mansion, when Stryker and his team get after the assassination on the president, he green lights Stryker to do what he's got to do to look into these mutants, and they do find out, like, through Stryker's manipulation, we find out he's got this like dot thing he puts on him back of mutants' necks, and he puts this drop for mind control. That's how he got Nightcrawler to attempt to assassinate the president. And they've been basically getting information out of Eric, because he's still in his plastic prison that he was put in at the end of the first X-Men movie, and he gives them all of it. Like, he knows all about the mansion, knows about Cerebro, because that's basically what Stryker wants. He wants to build his own Cerebro to try to kill the mutants all in one foul swoop, and that's his mission here. Again, more genocide, more mutant genocide is someone else is at it this time. And this is all due to it's true. Pretty much this is all motivated because Stryker's kid was a mutant, and he brought him to Charles and wanted Charles to cure him. And Charles just said, dude, this isn't a cure. Like, this isn't a disease. Like, we're going to teach your son how to use his abilities and like hone them in and everything. He wasn't having it, and he's been on a mission to destroy the mutants since then. So he sends a strike. He leads a strike team to the X Mansion, and this is when we get like Hugh Jackman really getting to let loose in some berserker rage here on the fucking guys that are on the soldiers that are trying to invade. we don't see blood, but he's stabbing dudes left and right in this scene.
Oh yeah, he's going to town. And I love that, but like just to jump back a second before they come in,
Sure.
I love that he's sitting there drinking milk with Iceman and like the kid who can't sleep, the kid who doesn't sleep, and he's like, "Get any beer here? This is a school full of kids. Do you think we have beer here?" No. But so I love that like moment, and then right after that, he gets to go berserker, and this is the first time we see Colossus in these movies.
Yes, which that's what I wanted to talk about here. We get a young Colossus here who is super badass. He fights, side by side with Logan for a lot of it, but Logan tells him, "Hey, protect the kids. I'll handle this. They need protection," and he kind of does that, and that's essentially it. And I was kind of upset because I like this dude as Colossus, even though like he's not Russian for some reason.
I did too.
I thought it was a little bit weird, and in this scene too, so that's what I'm saying. It was just kind of like disappointing that it reminded me like, oh, we got a badass Colossus before the one we got in Deadpool, which everyone adores, and so do I. But there was another awesome Colossus before him that just never kind of like got his day in the sun.
Underutilized.
Yeah. We also get Banshee, a girl who's supposed to be Banshee, I guess, and another Shadowcat.
Yeah, that's right.
Situation here.
Yeah, which I thought that was cool. Watching her run through the walls like that,
Yeah.
But again, like, just give us these fucking characters. Don't push. But I can't really come down on it too hard because it wasn't building the MCU. It couldn't give us every X-Men we want. So
yeah. And then Logan, of course, instead of stealing Scott's motorcycle, goes ahead and steals his car this time, and that was the one we referenced that is referenced in episode 8 of X-Men 97. But one thing that I thought was kind of goofy in this, though, on TV, there is a Hank McCoy speaking, who is not Kelsey Grammer and is human. What was that about?
Yeah, I think that was just, hey, let's throw that in the background for the fans, them not realizing that they were going to be casting Kelsey Grammer and having Beast actually be in the next movie. That's what I think that is.
No, I fully agree with you. And this is where, like, I mean, as much as I really do like him, we'll talk more about him next week. Kelsey Grammer's Beast is fucking perfect and awesome. And but it was just like for continuity purposes. I completely forgot that this was in this. And I was like, oh, come on. Why'd you have to do that? I wish I forgot that. I wish I didn't see that.
Yeah, it sucks, but you can't ding the movie for it because it didn't know what was going to happen in the third one.
Yeah, but I'm going to ding Bryan Singer a little bit because, come on, you weren't going to use Hank McCoy at some point, really.
Look, I'm going to ding Bryan Singer because fuck Bryan Singer for leaving us after doing this to go do that mediocre Superman movie. I mean, we covered it. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. I'd much rather have seen him actually continue. It's mediocre, exactly.
Yeah.
I'd much rather would have seen Bryan Singer continue this.
Yeah, I would rather see Bryan Singer give us another awesome X-Men movie instead of doing what he did and leaving us with Brett Ratner to go do a mediocre Superman movie.
Ugh, Brett Ratner, maybe one of the hackiest directors in the business.
Whatever. I'll hold off on that. So the showdown at the Drake house. Yeah, the Drake house in Boston, because Logan does take Rogue and Iceman and Pyro off to his to Bobby's home because he knows that Scott and Jean are Jean and Storm are there and tracking down Nightcrawler, so he pretty much goes to like meet up with them because the mansion has been destroyed. And yeah, that showdown is pretty awesome with the cops and stuff like that, especially when the cops are telling Logan to put the knives down. And he's like, I can't. What do you mean?
Can't.
And he takes a fucking bullet in the head.
Yeah, no, we get some really good Logan stuff here. And I also love that, again, this is wrestling with themes of family and what do you do when someone in the family is not like the rest. I'm not going to do the whole, oh my God, it's woke thing again. But, the family, there's something with Bobby. and the
Yes.
family didn't know about it, and they're not really okay with it. And the brother, who really hates this particular brand of people, mutants, goes and calls the authorities and rats on them. And it's like, yeah, wow, almost like if we were doing a Nazi Germany thing and we were talking about Jews trying to escape, and there's that one guy, Hitler Youth, on the phone.
Yep. Now the parallels are inescapable. I'm sorry, if you have any type of a functioning brain and you're watching the X-Men at all, it should click at some point. Otherwise,
yeah,
I have a lot of questions about you in general. I just do. I do. Like, your intelligence level is just, or just knowledge of any type of human history is just completely absent. But Pyro gets kind of like his real intro here. And he says this pretty cool line to the cops where he's like, you know those bad mutants you hear about on the news? Well, I'm the worst of them. And he blows up a bunch of fucking cars with his ability, and then Iceman
Yes, he does.
kind of like saves the day with that. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it's also cool to me that we're going to get this actor back in Deadpool and Wolverine as Pyro. So I thought that's pretty exciting. So I was like, oh shit, yeah, I like this kid.
He's great. He was, for me, he was the one that surprised me the most, because like when I first saw these, because he was in the first one, but a lot of people were in the first one, and I just remember thinking, oh, it's interesting that they have Pyro in as an X-Men, because I know that he's in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, or at least one of the lackeys. But it was cool that they followed up on it in this, and to actually see him turn to Magneto at some point and go off with him. It's like, this is why I love this movie so much, because it really, even though there are questionable choices, and again, it fucks up another beloved character like it did last week. Well, I guess we'll talk about Lady Deathstrike later, but I really do feel that there's enough here to really understands the source material that I can give the other stuff a pass, because watching Pyro make that decision is one of the best parts of this movie for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I do think that as much as I'm digging it for some creative choices on certain characters, no, this movie does like flawlessly follow up to it's a flawless follow up to the first one, because it seems like every little thing that they set up in the first one, or any kind of open thread, was definitely picked up in this movie, for sure. Like any little detail, which I very much appreciate.
For sure.
But some, like you mentioned, and that's a good thing. So before we get into, we can talk about Lady Deathstrike here. Mystique meets Nightcrawler in this movie, and Rogue meets Nightcrawler in this movie. And this is, I will admit, this is definitely because of where we're at right now in our X-Men the Animated Series watching, and X-Men 97. I'm going to be honest, it pissed me off. The creative choice to kind of ignore this entire thing annoyed me. I will admit, it did annoy me. It didn't ruin the movie for me, but
I can see that.
It's a missed opportunity. I'll put it this way. I will say my dings against this movie are creative choices that I feel are just missed opportunities here. Like, there's such a rich story to unpack with the three of those characters that you could have easily started with this movie. And they just chose to kind of like, nah, we're going to just kind of like let that one go. I think it's kind of silly.
Yeah.
Let that one go.
Yeah, I could see that. But you got to also keep in mind that Rogue is a very different character in this. Like, again, Rogue is like Jubilee. Like, I don't know if I would buy this Rogue, because this Rogue was never a bad guy. This Rogue never didn't run with Mystique and fuck shit up for mutants. Like, so I don't know if I would buy this particular Rogue being that badass daughter of Mystique. Like,
well,
so
no,
that's why I guess it didn't bother me so much.
No, what I will say is that I just think that the overall series choice could have been, hey, maybe at the end of this movie, Rogue goes with Mystique. Maybe a little bit. Like, I thought that would have been kind of a cool thing. Okay. Or you could have said, hey,
right,
Mystique is, like, she just acknowledges that she knows Kurt at some point. You know, we can be like a look or something. I'm not saying we have to like dive into this, but you could at least start setting things up for maybe the next movie. or
Gotcha.
something like that. You know what I mean? Or I don't know. I think you could have just done more with it. But once you did what you did here, the ship has sailed. Like there was not really any going back.
Yeah, right. I guess what you're saying is leave a thread to be pulled later on at the very least.
Yeah, that's all I was wanting, and yeah, because I don't want to like bog the movie down with too many threads, but you could have at least set something up. And also, though, so you mentioned Lady Deathstrike. We can talk about her too. She in this movie, we get her. She's being mind controlled by William Stryker in this movie as kind of like his muscle, his like bodyguard in a way. And she has this awesome fight with Logan later on in the film. And it is a cool looking fight, and I do find it interesting that Logan fought Mystique, and we'll get back to that in a second. In the first movie, and then fights Lady Deathstrike in this. But
yeah,
again, though, there was something here that you could have at least acknowledged that maybe Stryker chose her on purpose because, like, he had a prior relationship with Logan, but it obviously just goes completely ignored.
I agree. It felt to me like the same thing with Sabretooth. Though this isn't as egregious as Sabretooth because she's not as beloved, but there just needed to be something like, oh, do you recognize your old friend, Mr. Logan, or something like that? Because she's just stock mutant henchman number 7 in this.
Yeah.
And you only know that she's Lady Deathstrike at all if you've read the comics. And why burn that character for no reason?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just a creative choice thing because Kelly Hu does a good job as Lady Deathstrike. Her performance is cool, but you're right. She is underutilized though. Besides somebody for Logan to fight that has similar abilities as him later on in the movie.
That's really all it is.
Yeah, I kind of felt that was a missed opportunity. But there is also a scene here. Speaking of Mystique and Logan. That apparently she has a thing for this guy now. That scene in the tent.
That's right.
That scene in the tent that she's like, you know what I want? And she's like, well, what do you want? And goes ahead and like turns into Storm, turns into Jean, even like Rogue, and that's where like Logan's not having it. Then he's like, all right, it's not like that. Like, back up, lady, because he feels like her
looks like 15. You fucking pervert.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's the director's thing. That's not my thing. Yes, Bryan Singer. Yeah. So I don't know, man. Like, she was down to
get it on.
Yeah, like, wow. I mean, I actually forgot about this completely. Like, this was like some weird storyline that kind of like ran in there. Like, we fought and like she's into it now.
But that does make sense to me, to be honest with you. She's that kind of character. She doesn't hate the X-Men. Like, she's she's a true believer, like Magneto. If it were up to her, they'd all be fighting together.
Oh yeah, for sure. I fully agree with you.
And who doesn't want to fuck Wolverine? Come on.
So yeah, this is whole thing where then right after this they kind of like they hatch this plan to go to the base. They're gonna they find Stryker's base, and that's where Charles is being kept there as well. He's being like mind warped and controlled to create this Cerebro number 2, or to work it and to pretty much get a hold of all the mutants and basically kill them and ruin the whole thing. And the team goes there. We get a brief Jean and Scott face off. That's it, because Scott's being mind controlled as well in this movie, and that's kind of all he's relegated to in this movie, as mind controlled Scott Summers. He gets much less to do actually than Hawkeye in the first Avengers movie, because at least Hawkeye has like a whole thing eventually, but he gets mind controlled, and that's about it. That's kind of what Scott does. Yeah.
Scott almost has a moment when he goes with Professor X to visit Magneto, and then that's when Stryker lays the trap. And like, he goes to like fight back. He almost has a moment, but it doesn't really go anywhere.
him and Storm, man, they just get done so dirty in these movies, one after another. It sucks.
They do.
But when they're saving, the team is saving these mutants and stuff that are there before, Storm gets her brief moment. She, by name reference, there's a name drop of Jubilee in here, so they do follow up on that random Jubilee character from the first movie, that she's still there, but still like not of any kind of importance. She's just there, and I don't know. Again, I felt like somewhat of a missed opportunity. I could add that onto my list here. And throughout the movie too, Jean is also seen as these like brief Phoenix references. When she uses her powers to an extreme, her eyes light up and starts setting.
Which I think this was a bit forced.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I remember when I saw this in the theater, I was excited about it. But now looking back on it and watching it now, plus I also know where it goes, that sucks, man.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't need this.
Yeah, it and even her end, like, because I mean, we'll jump there.
Yeah, go
real
ahead.
Quick.
We're
like,
there. It's fine.
At the end of this movie, she sacrifices herself to save the X-wing and everyone in it. And like the last thing you see after she saves everyone is like a big phoenix in the sky, and it's like, where did this come from?
And the explanation in X-Men: The Last Stand is infuriating, and we'll talk more about it in detail next week, because I'm sure we're going to get all pissed off all over again. Yeah, this was forced. This was the Venom being forced on Sam Raimi in this franchise, and I just wonder creatively if this was forced on Bryan Singer, or was this a creative choice of his own? I don't recall. I kind of think I want to look into that, but
please do. Let me know.
It doesn't work in this whole thing. And again, I admit when I first saw it, I was excited. I'm like, "Ooh, cool! We're gonna get the Phoenix Saga the next movie." And boy, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Another thing we get at the end of this though is after Jean sacrifices herself, Logan tells Scott that in the end she chose you, which I still feel like, again, looking back on it now, the whole love triangle still doesn't work. That's another thing I feel like that keeps getting shoehorned in here, because it's never earned in these movies.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, I think it's a matter of, we have a list of things to get in an X-Men movie, and that's it. And I don't agree with that, but I understand, based when this movie was made, I understand why that was it. But I agree, yeah, there is no love triangle. Like, she chose you, of course she did. She was with me. She's my girlfriend. Who the fuck are you? You're some homeless Canadian we took in for a couple of weeks and gave directions to.
Yeah, because I actually think that Jean and Scott, actually they do. Jean and Logan have a brief conversation about it, and she even mentions like, "Oh yeah, this is like brief flirting." That's it. So that's it. He fell head over heels in love with her over some brief flirting. Come on, it's kind of hard to buy this one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I guess my only dings for X2 X-Men United overall are just kind of like overall story threads that I would have done a little bit differently, that I think this movie didn't need to do. But overall, it's still very enjoyable. It's still a fun movie to watch. I think it's still really good, and it's definitely in like the top tier of the Fox X-Men era. There are better movies for me at this point, like Logan, and I hold X-Men First Class in pretty damn high regard, maybe even higher than some others do. But it's in this conversation, but I feel like those two are better, in my opinion, and the first Deadpool movie.
Okay. You know what? I'm gonna save it till I rewatch everything.
Yeah, when we rewatch it, we'll revisit this conversation, because when we're done, we're gonna rank these movies, of course.
Absolutely, because right now I don't know where I would place this, because I love this movie. I think this is one of the best comic book movies there is. I really enjoyed it, even with its flaws. I think it does what it does well. It does so well, and even though there are questionable choices, I think there are certain things they do that show that the writing is really good. So
Yes, it
it's
is.
not questionable choices because of bad writing, which I have to take into account because we didn't say it, but this movie opens up at like a museum of natural history where they're looking at exhibits about evolution, and they spell out the whole and this is very Brightburn did this too, where they spell out the whole crux of the movie in this, using this allegory of something was this, and this is a true thing because I've been looking into modern man, early man recently, reading books about him and stuff. But we Homo sapiens lived next to Neanderthals, and they weren't murdered; they were bred out. Like they died out and bred with us. And actually, it is true there is a certain percentage of people who have Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal like DNA because of it, and that's essentially what this movie is, right? It's like humans are afraid that they're going to be the Neanderthals on that. And so they're trying to stop it. But the fact that it innocuously throws it in there, also while foreshadowing the future that, yes, Professor X can in fact stop time.
Yes, that is also a thing.
So I just think like the writing is still good, even though not everything works, and I do have to give it credit for that, because it's one thing if you have poor choices and bad writing, because then you could say, what the fuck were you thinking? They were clearly thinking something, it just didn't work for us in retrospect.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, even looking at like our wallpaper here, I mean, look at the characters that we have here, like Cyclops, underutilized, Lady Deathstrike, underutilized, Storm, underutilized, Iceman. I mean, he was okay in this. Like, he's fine if you want to say even underutilized.
Yeah, Iceman got his due in this.
Yeah, he got his due. Obviously, Wolverine is front and center, and he is in this movie. Rogue, pretty underutilized in this. Magneto definitely gets more to do than I guess the people in the back are the ones who are getting getting their due instead. Yeah, Pyro.
I think, like, honestly, I keep saying this. This is Magneto's movie. So was the first one, but this one is too.
Yeah, no, they do a great. They do. Listen, this movie is Charles to an actually Magneto more than Charles. It's Logan, Magneto, Nightcrawler. Pyro gets his due here and there. Jean obviously is front and center in a lot of this movie, and for some of the thing we don't like about the whole foreshadowing of Phoenix, but she still is a pretty integral part of this film.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, any other notes you want to get to? Anything else on X2 before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah. I got a couple points that I actually took notes on. Some big, some small. Some small thing. I respect that this movie doesn't hold our hands on Mystique. It doesn't clue us in. Like, remember the last one where she was Senator Kelly? Nah, she's just Senator Kelly. Just fucking roll with it. Just get it.
Yeah, that's it. Senator Kelly's dead, man.
That's it. And Mystique is taken over. That's all you need to know. I love the line, Mr. Lyrian, never trust a beautiful woman, especially if she's interested in you.
Oh, yeah.
And that whole scene, Magneto's escape scene, is one of my favorites, because I love Ian McKellen. He's one of my favorite actors. I think I love him in Magneto. I'm sure that the casting is going to be great. For me, no one's ever going to top this performance. Even when Stryker is like extracting information from him, there's this silent dignity that Ian McKellen brings to the character, right? And when he notices, because there's this whole thing where his guard, who's a piece of shit, Mystique just puts on her Rebecca Romaine outfit and picks him up and drugs him and just puts like something metal in him. And when that moment when Magneto senses it and he goes, Mr. Illyrian, there's something different about you today. It's like that whole scene of his breakout, just, oh my God, it fills me with such joy to watch that man act. Like, I love that moment in this movie.
Yeah, it really shows off the power of Magneto that all he needs is a little bit of fucking iron or metal injected in somebody,
Yes.
and he rips it out of him, and he can use that and turns it into like a whole a disc that he kind of like floats off with. He uses it to escape, and he takes just a couple of metal balls and fucking wrecks havoc on the whole thing to escape. That shows his power, man.
Yeah. That's why he is an A fucking list mutant, A2 list mutant, because this guy can take a needle and destroy a facility with it.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff.
That is a pretty awesome scene that I forgot to take a note on, but I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, no, it's hey, that's why we go through this. And then my last thing, little fun fact: I noticed that Nightcrawler, Jean Grey, and Halle Berry, and Storm, all alumni of Pierce Brosnan James Bond movies. As a matter of fact,
right.
Jean Grey and Nightcrawler were in the same fucking movie.
Yes, in GoldenEye.
Yep.
Wow. And I'm trying to think. No, nobody else actually.
Little 007. No, I was actually racking my brain after that. I was like, there's got to be other people. That would have been cool, but alas, we've never got Hugh Jackman in one of those movies, so he probably would be good as a James Bond villain or henchman or someone, or Felix Leiter maybe.
Well, I will say though, hold on, Brian Cox does have a 007 connection as well. He hosted some like game show thing on Prime Video. And he thought when he signed up for it, he was signing up to be a Bond villain, and was kind of disappointed that it wasn't that. Like, no shit. Awesome. No shit at all.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, there you go. There's
Brian Cox, we love you, and we're glad you're still with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, right. All right. So I think that kind of wraps it up for us this week. Thanks for joining us as always. If you joined us on Facebook, be sure to check out the Granny's PhD Facebook group, where we share a lot of trailers and stories and other news that as much as we can get, we'd like to share it and pass it on to you. So check us out there. Check out Pop Culture Pros and popculturepros.com, because we are presented by. On YouTube, subscribe to Pop Culture Pros. On X, which will always be Twitter, you can follow at Pop Culture Pros as well. And wherever you found your audio-only podcast, subscribe to Pop Culture Pros. A lot of cool stuff on the network, some sports shows and stuff like that. And, Empire 161 show if you're into the Yankees. Me and Lisa dropped a new episode just last night, so you can check us out there. Jason and I will be back next week talking about the infamous X-Men The Last Stand. The time has arrived. We will take our medicine, and we will see how that goes. Maybe we can find some redeeming factors. Maybe not. But we will discuss it for sure, along with episode 9 of X-Men 97. And anything else that may or may not pop up during the week. You never know. So, talk to you later. Peace.